Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our Hajj Fiqh, our special. We were trying to do something lastminute.com. Usman is still sending me voice notes, which I now can't hear. So, khair, we're going to have to just do it the old Bradford style. What I was hoping to do was to share a presentation with you. But what we've come to understand is that you can't do that directly from YouTube. Or can you? Hold on. Share screen. Maybe you can. Okay, so I'm going to try share screen and see if this works. Let me send a message to Usman to say you can share screen. Usman, I've not listened to your voice note, but you can share the screen. There's a little share screen button at the bottom, so I'm going to try that. So let me share screen. Share, select tab to share, allow, let's see, window, share window. So window and press share. We should now have this. Let me check with YouTube. I'm sharing my presentation. Usman, can you see it? Please do let me know if you can see it. Okay, so I am under the impression now that you should have this as I'm sharing the screen. If not, I'm just going to wing it anyway. So let's see what happens. Bismillah. So today's, yes, alhamdulillah, Usman has answered. He can see it, alhamdulillah. So today is the essentials of Hajj and Umrah. I'm conscious of time. It's 6:02. I do need to leave promptly at 7, and there's quite a lot to cover, and there's obviously some questions to cover as well. So today is going to be on the kind of broader topic of the Hajj. This is period 2, week 2, and this is about understanding the rights of Hajj, the manasikul Hajj, and this is going to be a rough outline, or as Usman says, a very, very rough outline. So I don't know what the difference between a rough outline is, a very rough outline, and a very, very rough outline. So I hope that this is going to be, I would call it a broad overview, inshallah. So let's just, let's crack on, as I say, without dilly-dallying around. So the structure of the lecture is going to be, is what conditions make Hajj compulsory? We know we are on the months of Hajj, okay? And as we are on the months of Hajj, Yani Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah, these are the months of Hajj. I felt like breaking into a Mahir Zain song there for a second, but I resisted. These are the months of Hajj, so there are certain conditions which are required or which need to be there in order to make Hajj compulsory, okay? We're then going to talk about the types of Hajj. And when we say the types of Hajj, in reality, Hajj is Hajj. Yani, there are certain tasks you do, specific tasks on specific days in specific places. When we say types of Hajj, this is whether this Hajj has an Umrah associated with it or not. That's really what we're saying. So there's certain type of Hajj in which it is just Hajj. You go into Ihram and it is Hajj. We touched slightly upon Ihram in the first lecture last week. The second type of Hajj is in which you do both, I'll turn that around, in which you do both Hajj and Umrah, but in separate Ihrams. And the third type of Hajj is which you do both Umrah and Hajj, but in the same Ihram. So when we say types of Hajj, in reality we're saying is, are you going to do Umrah with your Hajj or not? And if you're not going to do Umrah with your Hajj, that has a name, Ifrad. And if you're going to do Umrah with your Hajj, then are you going to do Umrah with your Hajj in the same Ihram or not in the same Ihram? If you're going to do it in the same Ihram, it becomes Qiran. And if you're not going to do it in the same Ihram, it becomes Tamattu. Okay? I'm not reading any of the messages now that are coming through on my phone. So the next area we're going to speak about is two technical terms, miqat and ihram. Ihram, I've said a few times and we touched upon it last week. Miqat, if you look at the word, it sounds like waqt, awqat. And waqt and awqat is times. But miqat is places, times and places. So miqat are the places in which you cannot go past if you have the intention of performing Umrah or Hajj unless you are in Ihram. Okay, and that's the next word, Ihram. Ihram is being in a sanctified state. I do advise you and signpost you to the lecture I delivered last week to understand the sort of philosophical and theological basis behind Ihram. Today is going to be a little bit of an overview, so more technicalities. And Ihram is going into this sanctified state in order to perform Hajj or Umrah. Umrah. You see how one word leads on to the other? Umrah is sometimes referred to as the lesser pilgrimage. Hajj is sometimes referred to as the greater pilgrimage. Umrah can be performed any time of the year, except obviously the days of Hajj. Hajj can only be performed in the days of Hajj, and certain tasks have to be done in certain times and places during those days of Hajj. Umrah is usually considered as the lesser because the tasks are less. You are doing tawaf and sa'i, generally speaking, and that's it. Whereas when you are doing Hajj, you are doing visits to Arafat, Mina, Muzdalifah, you're doing Jamarat, the Ramyul Jamarat, you're pelting the Jamarat, you are doing the dua on Arafat, you are resting, then you're doing Waqf in Muzdalifah. So there's different tasks associated with Hajj, and it can only be done once a year. Umrah can be done 5 times a year, 10 times a year, depending obviously if you've got the money and you get the visa. And as we know, people do try to strive to do Umrah during the month of Ramadan because the ajr is greater. In fact, there is a narration or words which I paraphrase in which a person who performs Umrah in the months of Hajj is as though they performed in the month of Ramadan, is as though they performed it with the Prophet ﷺ. And then obviously we'll touch upon the days of Hajj. I've already inclined to. So that's the structure of the letter. I appreciate That's the structure of the lecture. I appreciate that we've had questions coming in, obviously, on the Markaz al-Ifta wal-Qāḍī, and I will tackle them as well. I can't see if questions are coming up on the screen as well, so you're going to have to just bear with me. I will whiz through parts of it if I need to whiz through parts of it as well. So what are the conditions of Hajj? The first condition of Hajj is the person has to be a Muslim, which people might say, well, that's obvious. Why does a person need to perform Hajj if they're not a Muslim? The reason why this is mentioned about that the person has to be a Muslim is because there is an opinion that the compulsory acts, the 5 compulsory things like Shahada. So we say Shahada is compulsory upon a non-Muslim. That is compulsory for a non-Muslim to accept Islam. But then why should we exclude the other 4? Because these are all 5 foundations. Bunya al-Islamu al-Khams. So these are 5 foundations, Shahada being one of them. Salah, Siyam, Hajj, and Zakah. These are the 5 key areas. So if we consider one of the 5 pillars, Shahada, to be, or 5 foundations rather, to be a requirement for non-Muslims, then why exclude the other 4? However, we're not going to adopt that particular view. That is a lesser opinion. The view we're going to adopt is that the Hajj is not fard upon a non-Muslim. Therefore, a person has to be a Muslim in order for Hajj to be fard. Again, when we say Muslim, this is not a self-identification label. I know we live in the world of self-identification now, that a person can identify as and what they choose, and people now extend this onto religion as well. No, a person has to meet a certain criteria in order to be considered a believer. They must believe in certain fixed items within the deen for them to be considered as a Muslim. They must not reject any verse of the Quran. They must not reject the mutawatir hadith. So there are certain positions theologically that they have to adopt in order to be considered as a Muslim. However, this lecture is not about Iman. There is on this channel many lectures I've delivered in the past. In fact, a whole course on Aqidah Tahawiyya, which people can engage with in their own time. The person has to be an adult. Again, when we speak about the definition of an adult, the definition of an adult in Islam is a biological definition. It is not a figure that's been drawn or in a line in the sand based on a social construct that, oh, it should be 16 when a person can be involved in A, the 18 when a person can be involved in B, 21 when a person can be involved in C, 25, whatever. These aren't fixed criteria. Having said that, we as Muslims can use those as well for other aspects. But from a faith perspective, in terms of responsibilities of worship, we cannot use these values. We have to use the biological definition. And the biological definition is when a girl is considered as a woman biologically, and when a boy is considered as a man biologically. That's when the person is considered as an adult. Okay? Sound mind, I guess this is also another term now which is confusing to most because of all the kind of neurodiversity labels that we attach to people, that this person is A, B, C. The Sharia sounds considers a person of sound mind is one who can differentiate between right and wrong, and one who can differentiate and engage in day-to-day activities. That a person knows that, oh, I can open this door, close this door. I understand going outside. I understand if I punch this person, it hurts. They have an understanding of the world. So there is quite a high bar to consider a person of sound mind. This is also how we see, for example, in sound mind in the legal text in most modern legal systems. So even though a person, we might consider a cannibal to be insane, that's an insane thing to do, to eat another human. Okay, to kill another human, we might say, is insane. So we would not consider these acts to be normal. We would not consider the person to be normal. We might use labels like monster or evil or whatever. However, from a legal definition, they don't get too involved in this emotive and emotional language. What they get involved in is this person aware of what they are doing? Can they legally stand in a court and have this charge leveled at them? That's exactly how Islam looks at it. It's a very legalized framework. So sound mind is somebody who is aware of what they are doing. Ability to perform, meaning that there's safe passage. So if there's a war going on around that area, that they cannot travel, then they'll be excluded. Physically being able to do so. Hence the reason of not delaying Hajj unnecessarily. Why go in your 50s or 60s? Not that there's anything wrong with people in their 50s and 60s, but generally speaking, your health is not as good in your 50s and 60s as it was in your 20s and 30s. So take opportunity whilst you've got your fitness, whilst you've got your youth, whilst you've got your health and strength, and go then, rather than delaying and then saying, oh, I'm going to have to do tawaf in a wheelchair, I'm going to have to do sa'i in a wheelchair. Well, the maza, the actual involvement of the Hajj is gone. You're just being pushed around. Where's the kind of vibe? Where's the engagement? Where's the spiritual engagement? Where's the physical engagement gone? This it just doesn't feel right. Financial, obviously, it's getting quite expensive now to travel for Hajj. So a person needs to have the finances to do so. And that becomes a point, a criteria, a trigger. And secondly, obviously, if a person is responsible, say, for example, for his wife and children financially, then also ensuring that he leaves enough funds for them to be able to tend for themselves for the weeks or months he's away. And if the person is a woman, then a mahram is required. So she would have to, even if she triggers all of the above, she would have to wait for a mahram being available to travel. And if a person is a mahram for a woman, then he should not go for Hajj knowing that my wife, my sister, my mother, whatever, my daughter is left. He should take them with him. So at least her Hajj is complete. Because what you find too many times is blokes go for Hajj, and then they leave the female member of the family behind, and then they kind of shrug their shoulders saying, well, I can't afford to go again, or I can't take you, whatever. And now she unfortunately cannot perform. I mentioned at the outset the types of Hajj. I also introduced some terminologies. One is Qiran. Qiran, if you know a little bit of Arabic, Qarn is to bring close, is to bring something together. So Qiran here means to bring two things together close. Yani Umrah and Hajj. You're bringing them together. You're joining them. Okay, and what we mean by joining them is you enter into one physical ihram, you enter into one one particular time, and you make niyyah for both Umrah and Hajj at the same time. Okay, so even when you complete your Umrah, you do not come out of Ihram. You stay in Ihram, because you may remove the Umrah Ihram, but you've not removed the Hajj Ihram until the Hajj days are complete. Tamattu is one in which you are mata. Yani you're enjoying. What do we mean by enjoying here in this particular case? Here you are enjoying the opportunity of going for Hajj and taking benefit of it, and also sneaking in and performing an Umrah. What I mean by that is, you're going for Hajj. Your maqsad for going during the days of Hajj is not for Umrah. Your maqsad for going is Hajj. However, look, I'm going to a very blessed place. I can actually perform an Umrah as well, because my ticket means I land 2-3 days before the Hajj days start. I can actually perform Umrah in those 2-3 days. So I'm going to do that. So this person will enter into the Ihram of Umrah first. They will go perform Umrah, then they will remove the Ihram of Umrah, return to their normal behavior, and wait for the 8th of Dhul Hijjah when they go into Ihram of Hajj. Most people, in fact, 90% of people, and I would go with the 95% rule of people, perform Tamattu. Why? They only have to stay in Ihram for a day or two, maybe 2 days max, and they perform their Umrah, they come out of Ihram. Then they go into Ihram for another 2-3 days around the days of Hajj, and then they're out of Ihram. Whereas if a person does Qiran, the first one, then he will be in the state of Ihram from the time he goes past the Miqat all the way until the 10th, whatever, 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which means he could be in Ihram for 10 days, 8 days, 9 days. That is more challenging and, based on the Hanafi position, more rewarding. The Tamattu is the second in reward. Why? Because you're performing a Hajj and an Umrah with one journey. And that leaves the final one, which is Ifrad. Ifrad, Fard, Faradal means singular, individual, alone. So what do we mean here? Ifrad is a person who goes and solely performs the Ihram for Hajj only. They're not going to take advantage, tamattu, of the situation and perform on Umrah as well. They're definitely not going to do Umrah and Hajj. They're just going to go for Ifrad, singularly performing Hajj and coming out. So they won't enter into Ihram usually until they will normally come closer to the time of the days of Hajj, and they will arrive closer. Very few people perform Ifrad because you cannot enter into Makkah unless obviously you're performing the Ihram of Umrah or Hajj. So they will need to be in it straight away. So people tend to go a little bit later, closer to the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and then they're already there. As I said, 95% of people perform Tamattu, and then the other 5% perform Qiran. That tends to be my experience. Okay, here's a map. You can see an upside down type of kite as a rough shape of what the miqat is. And this miqat was obviously established in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and because people journeyed by on foot or on land, or possibly by ship, if they were coming across from North Africa or the east of Africa, then what you would find is that they were, the planes didn't exist. So if people were coming from the north, then Dhul Hulayfa was a stopping point for the caravans because they could replenish food, water, rest at the inns and go into Ihram. Similarly, if you were coming across from the coast or across the Red Sea, I believe that is, then it will be Al-Juhfa. And similarly, Jeddah, if you're coming across from here. If you're coming from Yemen, then it would be Yalamlam, one of my most favorite words, because when I pronounce the word Yalamlam, it feels like I'm enjoying something. And if you were coming from the east, then Iraq, surprisingly, that Irq, and also you'd have Qarn al-Manazil. And these were the usual resting points. That doesn't mean, oh, because I'm coming from this point, I don't need to go in Ihram because there's no particular station. It's not that. These were just localities in which they could replenish water, replenish food. Remember, these were travelers who travel for days. And then they would go into Ihram and then they would travel down to Mecca. We tend to land in Jeddah, most of us. So therefore, we would cross the boundary as soon as we would land. Hence, people would need to be in Ihram from their home countries, or obviously if they're doing en route in Doha or in Dubai or something, they would change there, or whatever else they're coming from. Don't worry, we'll touch upon this again. There's a reference from where it's been taken if you want to locate it. So what is the Rukn of Ihram? Okay, the first list I've made here is the person is before he goes into Ihram. Now remember, Ihram is not applying the garments. Okay, the first 4 on here are the sharait of Ihram. The sharait precede the actual act. For instance, when you're praying Salah, the sharait of Salah is the time. You have to make sure that the Salah you're praying, the time has started. You cannot start Salah and say, oh, I need to go make sharait precede the act. So you have in the Qibla, you have to be at the right time. I'm sure I've got those two mixed up now because I did it in different order before. You have to be in a state of wudu. Your clothes have to be clean. There should be nothing impure on it. they're not dirty, but impure. And I'm not going to start talking about the difference between unclean and impure. Again, there's many lectures on my channel and other ulama have done, which you can go to. We have to focus on this particular topic. You need to make sure your body does not have anything unclean in it. So again, nothing in your pockets like a bloody tissue. And I don't mean that as a profanity. I mean there's actually blood on your tissue. And you need to make sure the place that you're praying is clean. At least the place your 7 parts of the body is going to touch is clean. When all those sharat are met, then you make niyyah. Yani, I'm praying 4 rakats, Asr, at the time of Asr, obviously you don't need to do the full convoluted method, but I do a one in I learn in Pushto, facing Qibla, at the time of Salah, Allahu Akbar. As soon as you do Takbir Tahrim, Allahu Akbar, you are now in Salah. Okay, so similarly, I don't go into Ihram as soon as I wear my 2 sheets. Okay, I go into Ihram as soon as I make niyyah. And many people misunderstand this. So you have to make niyyah in order to go into Ihram. You cannot just go into Ihram as soon as you change your clothes, for a bloke anyway, and you put those 2 sheets on and say, that's it, I'm in Ihram. It doesn't work like that. So before you go into Ihram, yani before you make niyyah for Ihram, you need to remove any nails, not nails like the ones that you use to hammer things. You shouldn't be carrying them anywhere. Remove your nails from your fingers and feet, and nails if you have them anywhere else on your body, and any unwanted hair, yani najasat, that we normally are requested to remove at least every 40 days, if not earlier, rather, on a weekly basis. And take ghusl. Why? Because you're not going to be able to do that when in the state of ihram. Of course, you can't take ghusl when you are in a state of ihram, but you have to be very, very careful that you don't sort of like, trying to get to the skin of your beard or to the roots of your hair, and you end up losing hair, okay? And beard hair start falling out. So you have to be very careful. And of course, you can't start using perfume material, something with strong smells. Some soaps, if they naturally have a slight bit of perfume, it's not an issue. But obviously, you cannot be trying to perfume yourself. You are supposed to be in a disheveled state. You are supposed to be in a grimy, dirty state. You're trying to lower your nafsi side of you so that you come and look like a beggar in front of Allah. For a man, he wears his ihram garments, which is that he removes any stitched clothing. Stitched clothing is a jubba. Stitched clothing is a shirt. It's a t-shirt. It's a kameez, whatever else he's wearing. Stitched clothing is trousers, bottoms, leggings. I don't know, blokes don't wear leggings, do they? No. Shorts, shalwar, whatever. Underwear, boxer shorts, white fronts, whatever the bloke's got on. All these are stitched and they are clothing. And for a man he cannot wear stitched clothing when in the state of ihram. So he has to remove them before the niyyah. There's no point making the niyyah and violating his ihram almost immediately. So he has to remove those. Okay. But obviously he has to cover himself. Yani his aura has to be covered. So for that reason, he wears an izar, which is a lower garment, and he wears a rida, which is an upper garment. So basically 2 sheets. One he wears like a lungi at the bottom, and one he has just like a shawl, and he keeps himself warm as best as possible. Well, he doesn't need to worry about keeping himself warm. He's going to, Arabia, for crying out loud. He will be warm. He's got nothing to worry about there. So he wears them. Okay, the woman does not need to change her clothing. I know some women, particularly from Southeast Asia, will prefer to wear white because they want to kind of get in the vibe as the men are. There's no requirement for a woman to wear white. The woman can wear whatever clothes she normally wears. Her aura has to be covered. So her aura is her head, her whole body, including her feet, except her hands, her palms, and by the same token, her opposite of palms, whatever they are, and also her face. Okay, according to obviously the Hanafi school and many of the other schools, the face is covered due to fitna. So therefore, because she can't have anything covering her face, then she will wear one of those kind of like a baseball cap type thing, which keeps the niqab away from her face. The man also cannot cover his face, but the man also cannot cover his head, right? In the state of ihram. When it comes to things like money belts or, the kind of like, little kind of bags that people wear, then these are not clothing. You're wearing this as something else. It is clothing, which is the problem. But do not wear your money belt with the niyyah that it is a belt. Okay, I know many people who might be a little bit chubby around the belly and can't tie their ihram properly, and they think their ihram is going to drop, so they tie a money belt around it. You can't do that if your niyyah is to hold your ihram up. because then you might as well tie a belt, and then you violated it, because a belt is a piece of clothing which is stitched. So what you should do is saying, this is for my money, and that's got to be your niyyah. Otherwise, learn how to tie the ihram, or better still, lose some weight around the belly. You should comb and oil the hair, because you ain't going to be doing that for a while, and apply perfume, okay, so that you're nice and fresh and itar done. 2 rakats nafil, again, because you are not in the state of ihram. You can keep the hat on your head, or the amama, or whatever you wear, and pray your 2 rakats nafil. Now you sit and you make niyyah. Now you remove your hat off your head. You do not need to do anything else, because you're wearing the right clothing. Your footwear is such, and we're going to talk about footwear shortly. Your footwear is such that your ka'ab is not covered. As I said, we'll get to that. Don't worry about that. And you're now ready to go into niyyah. And remember the niyyah that you are making. You are now going into a sanctified state in which you are not going to harm anybody, anything. You're not going to harm yourself. You're not going to harm another human. You're not going to harm an animal. You're not even going to harm a blade of grass or an insect flying in the sky. You are at peace with anything and everybody. So you have to get the right zone with this. Now, if you're performing tamattu, you're going to make niyyah for umrah. Okay, because you're going to go into the ihram of umrah first, do your umrah, remove your ihram of umrah, and then wait for the days of Hajj. If you're doing Quran, you're going to make the niyyah for Quran. And if you're doing ifrad, you're going to make the niyyah for ifrad. And you would start your talbiyah. I do not need to tell you what talbiyah is. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika lak, labbaik, inna alhamda, wa ni'mata lak wal mulk, la sharika wa la sharika lak, just in case you didn't know. What else? Once you are now made the niyyah, you are in salah. Think of it like that. Okay, as soon as you make the niyyah and you've done your takbir tahrima, that's the same way. You've made the niyyah, you are now in salah, you are now in ihram. Therefore, now you cannot remove hair or nails, intentionally or unintentionally. There are some exceptions, which we'll get to in time. There's no intimacy between wife and husband. So, anything which leads to it as well, you can avoid for whatever, a day, 2 days, mashallah. I know there's a lot of muhabba between husbands and wives, but I'm sure for a day or two, they can manage to keep themselves to themselves. Even anything which leads to it, like holding hands or anything, but there cannot be any involvement at all. Stitched clothing for the bloke. Covering the face for bloke and woman, and covering the head for the bloke. The covering of the ka'ab, of the foot, we're going to touch upon that. Fragrance, arguing and disputing, anything which is going to bring your ihram into a problematic area, avoid it like the plague. Next man wants to have an argument with you, let him be, walk on. You don't need to prove how tough you are. You'll get that chance when you're doing ittiba, by removing your rida and showing your shoulders and biceps and triceps that you've been working hard on at the gym, to make sure that you look good when you're going for umrah or hajj. We talked about the ka'ab. Now the ka'ab, there's difference of views amongst the ulama as to what the ka'ab is. So some say, and this tends to be quite a predominant position outside of the Hanafi school, that the ka'ab, and I'm not going to bring my foot up to the camera. Oh, yeah, I don't think you can see me, can you? I don't know. Can you just see this? Can you just see the presentation, or can you actually see me as well? Allahu A'lam. So the ka'ab is, according to many of the schools, the ankle. Okay, that is the ka'ab. Because ka'ab means something which protrudes. That's why the Kaaba is called the Kaaba, because it protrudes like a pimple on the skin of the earth. So similarly, the ka'ab is the ankle according to many. According to the Ahnaf, it is not considered as the ankle. However, we take the ankle as something of a serious issue to take into consideration. But if you take your hand, I don't know why I showed you my hand, but if you take your hand and you run your hand, or you can see me in the bottom right corner. It's a good thing I'm not doing anything silly then. Alhamdulillah. So if you take your hand and you run it across your shin, okay, and your shin is there, and as you run it across your shin, you'll notice your foot starts to, your foot is at the end of your shin, and your hand will start to kind of go out onto your foot. And then you will feel a bone, okay, at the top of your foot. Right, and then you'll go over this bone. Imagine you're running it near your big toe. So run it along the line of your big toe. Start with your shin, run your fingers down, and you will start to get your foot. And then you run for about, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Obviously, it depends on the size of your foot. You guys might have like pura hati feet or something. I've obviously got natural good size feet. And as you get it to the bone, you'll feel a bone there. Okay, that bone, according to the Ahnaf, is the ka'ab. Okay, then when you go past that bone, you start going towards your big toe. Then you get the kind of root of your big toe, and then obviously your big toe, right? So that would be considered as what is termed as the cuneiform. okay, which is on here, right, just before your metatarsals, which is the bit between the bone and as you get to your big toe, and then obviously you have your big toe, right? So therefore, nothing can cover that, and nothing can cover the ankle. Can you have something which covers your toes, right to the end of your toes? Absolutely, you can. Okay, can you have something which covers the base of your foot? Absolutely, you can. Can you have something which comes up the side of your ankle? No, you cannot, because your ankle has to be uncovered. So uncover these two bones. So there's no point sending me 900 pictures of different types of footwear. As long as these two bones are uncovered, then you are safe. Now, many people, what they do is what I call them those toe splitting chappal. They wear them. And if your feet are comfortable with them, Bismillah, wear them, because they're the least foot covering shoes, slippers that exists. And you're going to be definitely safe with them. But if, you have delicate feet like me, alhamdulillah, then obviously, and you feel that that's going to cut in between your toes, then you can wear that which has like a band over your toes, so that you're not doing this toe splitting thing. Okay, so I hope that makes sense for you there, inshallah. So this person is, remember, we had 3 types of Hajj, not why show I've given you 4 fingers. 3 types of Hajj. We had Tamattu, in which you're performing Umrah first. We had Qiran, in which you're going to do Umrah and then Hajj in one Ihram. And then we had Ifrad, where you're just doing Hajj. So what you would do is, if you're doing the Umrah of Tamattu, you would go to perform Tawaf first. And we're going to get into the specifics of what is Tawaf. Tawaf, well, we'll tell you what it is now, is circumambulation. It's where the Arabic word is easier than the English word. So circumambulation means to basically, go in a circular fashion round something. In this case, the circular fashion that we're going round something is the Kaaba itself. Okay, so we are going round the Kaaba. We do 7 circuits around the Kaaba. 7 circuits makes it 1 total. So 7 ashwat, yani 7 times round. We do that, obviously. Then Maqam Ibrahim we're going to talk about, then drinking Zamzam we're going to talk about, and then we do what's called Sa'i. Sa'i is you go out of the Mataf. Mataf is the area around the Kaaba, and you come out of that gate in the corner where the Hajr Aswad is. I don't know why Hajr Aswad had an ayn in it, Hajr Aswad. And there you will see that there is Safa and Marwa. They're very small hills now, hardly you'll feel the incline, but it's not really like what we would consider to be a hill now, because, and I don't know why hill had a high in it, it should be hill, is because obviously the amount of people walking on it and the building on it, it's obviously come down, but you can sense an elevation as you walk up it. And then you will go across to Marwa. And as you go across, you'll see a section in the middle with green lights here. And this is the Sa'i. This is where you pick up pace. You don't need to go crazy. Okay, you don't need to go like full sprint or something. But you just pick up your pace. It's obviously the man can pick his pace up considerably more than a woman. Obviously, a woman needs to be considerate that she moves in a ladylike fashion. Obviously, there's men around, and she just needs to kind of keep her head in the game as to the manner she moves her body around. So again, trying to keep her arms close by, and her husband should kind of jog with her, so that at least he doesn't run to the other side and then he's wait there, like how long are you going to be and all the rest of it. And then once that's done, the halq or the qasr. Halq means he shaves his head off, completely removing all his hair. And the qasr means that he removes it and leaves a small amount of hair on his head. Obviously, the halq is afdal, superior to qasr. Even if you're going to do tamattu and you think, well, no point doing a halq now, what I'll do is I'll do a qasr now, then I'll do a halq after my hajj. No, just do a halq, and then obviously when it comes around to hajj, he'll just move a blade over your head. He won't move a blade over your head like that, but he'll move the blade over your scalp. That's Umrah done. Nice and easy. Of course, we'll do the deep dive, inshallah, next week. Okay, so 8th of Dhul Hijjah is when the days of Hajj will start. Right? Again, for the person who is doing tamattu, he's come out of his ihram. And the reason why I'm focusing on this is because 90%, I said at the beginning, 95% of people do tamattu. So they're now going to go back into ihram now for the Hajj. The Qiran chap, he's still in his ihram. He's been in his ihram since the day he arrived. He's not come out of his ihram. So he's still in it. Ifrad chap is still in his ihram because he's not done anything. He's waiting for the Hajj to start. So he's in it. This is the only person, or the only type of person, is the one performing tamattu, which 95% of the people do when they go to perform Hajj. So he's done his Umrah, alhamdulillah, may Allah accept. He's now ready for the days of Hajj. Again, he does exactly the same as he did in the slide previously, where he goes into ihram and he makes intention to do so. He does tawaf again, remember, and he does tawaf of 7 circuits, in which he does ramal and ittiba. Ramal is when he picks up his pace, and obviously it's not easy to pick up your pace when you're doing the tawaf in the mataf. A little bit easier if you're allowed on the higher levels, but then you got a lot of walking to do, so you got to be fit for this. Okay, again, I can't touch upon the fitness side of things. I can't touch upon the historical significance side of things, because we are on a clock here and we've got 25 minutes left. We've got lots of questions to answer, and I think I haven't even started Hajj yet, so you can imagine what needs to be covered. Once the tawaf has been done, ittiba, is when he takes his lower garment and puts it under his right armpit, exposing his right arm and his right shoulder. This is the time, lads, that if you've been going to the gym membership will pay off, because you show your muscles, you show your biceps as you're walking along. Or for like the rest of us, you just show a little bit of extra flab that you weren't showing before. He then goes to do sa'i between Safa and Marwa, 7 circuits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you end up finishing not in the place that you started, which is Safa. You then travel to Mina, okay, on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, this is. Mina is the city of tents, okay? That's where you go. There you perform Dhuhr and Asr, obviously bil Jama'ah in your tent, whoever's with you. And then the Maghrib and Isha as well, and the Fajr of the 9th. So you spend the whole afternoon, evening, and night there. And depending on whether you are a muqim or a musafir in Makkah is the hukm you will apply to yourself here. What do you do here? Well, there's no actual specific events or tasks to do here. Maybe gain a little bit of strength, because you've got 2-3 days ahead of you, which are going to be quite challenging. So rest, okay? Don't try to be a superhero. Don't try to be doing nafal all day and all night, because you're going to feel it in a day's time. So rest. There'll be plenty of time for you to do your nawafil. Rest and do ibadah. And I've intentionally put ibadah in seated position, meaning aram. Take it easy. Load up on liquids, load up on solids, load up on high energy. You've got good lavatory usage, meaning there's plenty of lavatories around, so you can answer the call of nature comfortably, and you can make wudu comfortably. So make the use of this 24 hours or whatever, just under 24 hours, and gain your strength. But don't waste your time in talking, right? Seated ibadah, tasbihat, istighfar, dua for your teachers, dua for me, dua for your family, your parents, whoever, everybody. Use this time effectively. Remember, now the Fajr of 9th of Dhul Hijjah has started. You've prayed this at Mina. You've been here now since before the Dhuhr of the day before. You now make talbiyah and takbir. Talbiyah, we all know what talbiyah is. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika lak, labbaik innal hamda wan ni'mata lak wal mulk la sharika lak. And now takbir. Takbir, if you don't know what takbir is now, then you're never going to know. But just in case, Allahu Akbar, as you're making your way to Arafat, right? There you're going to do something which is called Wukuf al-Arafah. Wukuf, the act solely is to stay and remain in Arafah. But again, you're not remaining in Arafah and doing nothing, gup-shopping, gossiping, playing on your phone. No, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Okay, once in a lifetime opportunity for you to be lucky and fortunate to be gathered in that place on that day, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive your sins and raise your status and raise your rank. So make the most of it whilst you're there. This will be from Zawal, which is just after the noon, to Subah Sadiq the next day. This can be quite challenging in the sense of lavatory usage, but again, it was good quality when I went there, and I went there quite some years ago, so I'm sure it's improved even more so now. Okay, but again, a chance to rest a little bit, but do stand in Salah. Do stand in your istighfar. Do stand and cry to Allah. Find a quiet spot nobody recognizes you. No point wailing in front of all your friends and family in the tent trying to make a name for yourself. Go somewhere away from someone, but don't go too far because you could get lost. And this is a rukn of Hajj. This is Hajj. Okay, this is Hajj. This day is Hajj. So make the most of this day. If you are going to Masjid Namira, and I don't mean Masjid Namira here in Bradford, in Hanover Square, which is my home street, in fact. This is referring to Masjid Namira in Arafat. So if your group are going to go to Masjid Namira, then you will combine Dhuhr and Asr behind the Imam there. Okay. But if you're not going to go, and 99.999% you're not going to go, okay, don't become a little hero and trek off on your own, because you could potentially get lost. And if you do get lost, then obviously it's going to be chaos trying to locate you. You don't know the language. You're in a foreign country. You don't know where you're going. It's going to be issues. So go by whoever the Amir is of the group. The Amir is there for a reason, to be followed. And so most likely you will pray in your tent. And again, you will pray Dhuhr in its own time and Asr in its own time. The fasting in Arafat as well. But if it's challenging, then obviously one would avoid that. This is obviously for those people who don't attend. You leave for Muzdalifah after sunset. Okay, so you do not pray Maghrib. So you wait for the sunset in Arafat. You don't pray Maghrib because Maghrib is straight after sunset, and you set off for Muzdalifah. When you arrive in Muzdalifah, which will be late in the night, your Isha time would have started. So now what you do is, this is the time where this is now the 10th of Zulhijjah, you perform Maghrib and Isha combined at Muzdalifah. You make one adhan and one iqamah. So again, if you can get 5, 6 of you together, you ain't going to get your whole group together, because you're going to just find spots. Literally, you're going to find spots unless you get there very early, which you're just going to find a spot for 6 people, a spot for 10 people. So maybe the group of you can be like located close together. Okay, you're there, you're there, you're there. Club the women together, club the men together. And so that, you can kind of overlook each other. One adhan, one iqamah. There's no pause in between the fard for sunnah or the nawafil. Okay, so straight one fard after another fard. Here is, because you're not, again, apart from resting, I laughed when I said that, because the chances you ain't going to get any. But apart from resting, and again, dhikr and tilawatul Quran, there's no specific task here, because you're preparing for the Jamarat pelting tomorrow. So go get some pebbles, okay? Pebbles should be like a sweet corn size. You're not picking up surface to air missiles or something, just small little sweet corn size pebbles. Collect them. And I know I've given you an exact number there, 7 plus 21 plus 21, but really you want to get extra. Yeah, let's not do Makki Chusiyat here. Get extra. Why? Because if you drop a pebble, you're not going to be picking up a pebble from the ground, because those pebbles from the ground in the Jamarat one cannot pick up. So therefore, take extra. And if you've got vulnerable people with you, elderly people, or you're taking some youngsters with you, or somebody who's in a wheelchair, somebody who's going to struggle, then the chances are they're going to drop or lose more pebbles. So, factor that in. Get more pebbles. Okay, so even if you've got 100 or 150 pebbles, just collect them. Have a nice pouch that's there, so you can then hand them to the elderly, whoever it is that's dealing with it, and make sure they're doing it properly. Remember, this is 7/21/21. If you're gonna, because you only pelt the Aqaba on the first day, and then you pelt all 3 on the next day, and all 3 on the day after. So therefore, what you're gonna have is that many. But if you're gonna stay the 13th as well, then if you stay the night of the 13th, then you have to pelt the next day. So then get extra. Okay, but most people don't. They should do. There's more ajr in it. But if you don't do, then at least you know. Rest if you can, I say, tongue in cheek. Why? Because if you get a chance to rest, you are a wali, and I need to come and meet you and take bear from you. Why? Because it's near impossible that you can rest there. It's noisy. There's people stepping over you. There's people stepping on you. It's there's a hustle bustle. There's a lot going on. People are streaming in to Muzdalifah all night. Okay, all night. They think about it. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people are being moved around from these locations for 3-4 days. So there's a big hustle on. Do your adhkar, do your istighfar, okay, and rest if you can. If you can't, you're prepared. I told you to get prepared in Mina the first day. I told you to rest a little bit in Arafat the next day. It's mainly for this night. And again, what I would do is be conservative with your water consumption and conservative with your food consumption. Because again, getting access to lavatories here is challenging. Again, I'm sure it's developed since I've been, but it is challenging. And the last thing you want to do is load up on liquids and load up on food, and then you got to go, and then, you got a mas'ala to deal with. So just enough liquid to keep yourself going. Make sure your electrolytes is up. Get a little electrolyte tablet, chuck it into a bit of water, keep them up, and think which is going to give you food which is high energy, low residue. So, peanuts, nuts generally, energy bars, protein bars, anything which is going to give you a lot of energy, okay, dates, a lot of energy in one go, but there's going to be little residue as a consequence of it. Okay, you pray Fajr here, and you will stay here until sunrise. So if sunrise has happened now, okay, we've prayed Fajr at Muzdalifah, like we mentioned. You're now going to go to Mina again, which is the city of the tents. You're making your talbiyah again, okay? Labbaik, you got it, yeah? Now you're going to pelt the Jamra al-Aqaba with the 7 pebbles. And you know, you're throwing it like darts, okay? You know, like that, you know, like I said, some people go, you know, absolute mad. They go loco with what they're doing there. There's nothing, this is not shaitan. Okay, this is just symbolizing your detachment from your disobedience to Allah. That, Ya Allah, I'm detaching myself from my disobedience. Okay, I cast stones to the evil that's within me. You're separating yourself from it. That's what you're doing. You're not beating shaitan up. Don't worry, shaitan, you know, he's going to beat you up when he wants to beat you up. This is you dissociating yourself from him. So, you know, be sensible. There's people swinging things and then hitting other people on the head with their elbows, and you know, people just go a little bit mad here. And you say takbir with each one. Remember, as soon as you throw the first stone, talbiyah stops. Okay, if you are, and there was a question which came up on the Markaz al-Ifta, if you are performing tamattu or you are a qarin, you will slaughter an animal. Okay, this is called hadi. Yani, this is giving thanks for Allah giving you this opportunity to do what you just did. The person doing ifrad, he does not do it. Okay, because he just performed the ritual act of Hajj. You will do that. You will slaughter this animal. This animal is different than the udhiyah that we do here in the you know in not in the haram. The shaving of the head takes place. As yet, there is no intimacy. Okay, because you are not completely out of your ihram until you do tawaf al-ifada, which is the tawaf of Hajj. You have to do that first before you come out of completely ihram. So you may even, when you've shaved your head, you may even change your clothes and start wearing stitched clothing again. That's fine. But you cannot engage in intimacy until you have come out of the ihram. Remember, the ihram is a spiritual state. It is not a physical state. You've not done your taslim tahliliya. Eh? You've not done your assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So it's like you're still in salah. Okay, so you make tawaf al-ifada. And if you've already done the sa'i, then there's no ramal in the tawaf, because you only do ramal if there's going to be a sa'i which follows it. If not, if you've not done the sa'i, then you do ramal, and sa'i is required. Ittiba is only if you're still in your 2 cloths. But if you came out of them and you wore your normal clothes, then you will not do that. Once this is done, it's back to Mina. 11th and 12th of Dhul Hijjah, you'll pelt all 3 jamarats, okay? Preferably zawal to sunset, but follow the advice of your group leaders. There could be all sorts of incidents going on. Be sensible. And you do a dua after the small and the medium one facing the Qibla. You return to Mina after the 11th, and then return to Makkah on the 12th by sunset. Okay? If, however, you're still there after sunset, in the Mina, now you will have to pelt the next day as well. You cannot leave now. Leaving Makkah, okay, you've done your Hajj, Barakallahu Fiqh, may Allah accept it from you, Taqabbalallahu minna wa minkum. You're now going to Medina, or you're going back home, whatever. You will do Tawaf al-Wida, which is the farewell Tawaf, okay? Women who are menstruating, obviously they're excluded from this. And don't worry, we have some menstrual masail coming up shortly. Here it is as a little map. So you went past Miqat, you got into Ihram, okay? You then came into Makkah. Number 2, you circled the Kaaba, right? You then, obviously, you either performed, you did your sa'i, you came out of Umrah. If you didn't come out of Umrah, you came out of Ihram, you completed your Umrah, you waited for the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. For the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, you went back into Ihram in the Haram. You're now gone from the Haram, you've done your Tawaf, you set off now to Mina. You stayed Mina here, if you remember. You spent the rest of the day, the next morning, and then you set off for Muzdalifah. Okay, Muzdalifah you stayed pretty much for a day and a half, or just under a day rather. And then obviously you did not pray your Maghrib, and then you set off, you prayed your Maghrib here and your Isha here. And then you went to the plain of Arafat, Oh, sorry, I'm confused myself. You went from Mina straight to the Arafat. Sorry, my apologies. That's why I thought, why am I doing this for? You went from Mina straight to Arafat, if you remember. You spent your time in Arafat. You would have done Zuhr and Asr separately because you're not praying in Masjid Namira. And then you would have waited for sunset, but you would not have prayed Maghrib. And then you would have prayed Maghrib and Isha at Muzdalifah. You would have collected your pebbles here. And then you would have gone back to Mina. Oh, why have I just pressed that? All right, got to be excited there. You'd have gone back to Mina because next to Mina is the Jamarat. It's like about, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour walking distance. I guess it depends how fast you walk. You pelt the Jamarat, okay, one on the first day, 7 stones, and then back, rest in Mina. Then you do all 3 on the 11th, then back, and then all 3 on the 12th. And then you set off from Mina back to your hotel before, obviously, the sunset. So that if you had still stayed here after the sunset of the 12th, then it becomes the 13th, because in Islam, the night precedes the day. So you would have had to now pelt those Jamarat again the day after. Once you come down here, then obviously is Ranhat. This is a qaida we got taught by our teachers, Rami, Nahar, Halq, Tawaf. So you've done your Rami, you now do your Nahar, make sure the animal is slaughtered. Halq, you shave your head, okay, but you're not out of Ihram completely. Why? Because you need to do the Tawaful Ifada. You've done the Tawaful Ifada, now you are completely out of Ihram. Now look at this distance, 0 to 4 miles, right? 0 to 4 miles. So it's about 4 miles approximately from Makkah to Mina. There to Muzdalifah is about 2-3 miles. There to Arafat, about 2-3 miles. 2-3 miles back. 3-4 miles. 4 miles back. Some people walk these distances, but if you're going to walk it, be ready for it. All right. Most people go by coaches. So some contemporary masail, and I know we've only got 9 minutes, so I'm going to try to pick up some of those questions as much as I can. Washing powder and liquid, obviously be very careful with these things because most of these are scented, so you want to be very wary with them. Obviously, if a person did engage with this, they would only give sadaqah. Any order food, yani orderful food full of order in its raw form, and drink full of order in its raw form, avoid them, okay? Especially if they're being scented, like rose water, or things like that. I know people don't drink rose, well, people might drink rose water, but you know what I mean. But anything which has been cooked is excused. So if you're having biryani, before you start texting me and saying, Mufti Sahib, are you banning us from biryani, which has lots of saffron in it? If you're having biryani, you're okay, because biryani is usually cooked. If you're going to wear the sleep apnea mask, that's going to cover your face for half the day or something, again, you have to give sadaqah, right? If you're still thinking COVID is around, then you need to wear your face mask, obviously. Therefore, again, sadaqah needs to be given. Some people don't spend the night at Mina. You're missing out on the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ by not sleeping at Mina, and they go back to their hotel. Okay, but there's no sadaqah that needs to be given as a result. Each one of these individually, sadaqah is required. Sadaqah is the same as sadaqatul fitr. Sadaqatul fitr, which on the Wifaqul Ulama website, I think is £3-4 or something, if memory serves me correctly. So make sure, round it up to a fiver, I guess, just to be on the safe side, which might equate to, I don't know, about 20 riyals or something, 25 riyals. So for each problem, 25 riyals, give to the poor. There'll be many asking on the locals who the poor people are, and give to the poor. So menstruating masail, okay? Obviously, when a woman is menstruating, she cannot pray salah, so she cannot go into the masjid part, and she cannot perform tawaf because the Kaaba is in the masjid, right? Now, there's difference of opinions with regards to sa'i. Some people say, no, the masjid has now engulfed the sa'i into it. However, I'm of the view that one can consider the sa'i to be outside of the masjid, which makes it strange because the masjid is kind of built all around it. But it's no different than Masjid Nabawi, in which the Prophet ﷺ's resting place is now in the masjid, which technically it's not in the masjid because that little area is excluded from the masjid, yet the masjid has built all the way around it. So I apply the same reasoning and say the sa'i part is where the masjid is now built around, and sa'i is separate to it. So Tawaf al-Qudum is when you come to the Makkah, when you come to the Masjid al-Haram, you perform Tawaf al-Qudum. Like Tahiyatul Masjid, yani you come to the Masjid, you pray 2 rakats, Tahiyatul Masjid. Or when you perform wudu, 2 rakats, Tahiyatul Wudu. So same we do Tawaf al-Qudum. It is a sunnah, so one should try to perform it. If one doesn't perform it, it is excused. Somebody asked the question, can one incorporate the Tawaf al-Qudum with the Tawaf of Umrah or the Tawaf of others? From a usul perspective, I guess you could, because this is a sunnah and you can incorporate the sunnah with your fard kind of tawaf. However, you're there as a rare thing. Perform it. You just take the opportunity to perform it. Tawaf al-Ifada is the fard. It is the Hajj. Okay, and this is the problem that sisters have, because sisters say, well, look, my ticket tells me that I got to leave on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah, or the 12th, no, sorry, not 11th of the, yeah, the 12th or 13th or 14th of Dhul Hijjah. I've got to go. My ticket says that. What am I supposed to do? If I don't perform tawaf, I'm going to be state of ihram for the rest of my life. And what we mean by that is there's no intimacy between husband and wife, because until tawaf al-ifada is performed, you are not completely out of ihram, which is a big problem. So the first thing I say is, please, sisters, speak to your husbands, brothers, fathers, whoever it is that's booking your tickets, and give them some tartib of when your menstrual cycle is. For most women who are below the age of, I say, 45 onwards, your menstrual cycle is pretty regular, unless obviously you have some underlying medical condition. And therefore, you know when your menstrual cycle is going to start. As women get older, obviously with premenopause and menopause, it does start to jiggle around a little bit. It starts to move around a little bit. It becomes a little bit difficult to predict. But for women, the great majority of the women, sort of 20 to 45, that kind of age bracket, theirs is pretty reliable, pretty predictable. So you know when your Haid is going to start. So plan your tickets accordingly so you can perform your tawaf before you leave. We book our flights around our work. We book our flights around weddings. We book our flights around the cost. We book our flights around everything else, but we don't book our flights around something which would permit you to do a tawaf and not permit you to do tawaf when that's the actual reason you're traveling for. Well, khair, all that said, let's just say you're in this dilemma. Now what do you do? Well, the ulama say that you should perform the tawaf al-ifada in a state of haid, which is, of course, is a sin, because that's like praying salah in the state of haid. But what else are you going to do? Okay, and the ulama say that you will be absolved, not of the sin, but you'll be absolved of the act. Yani you would have performed the tawaf al-ifada. However, you would have to give them, and we're not talking about giving them of a cockerel or a sheep. You have to give them of a camel. That's expensive. Okay, I don't know what the prices of a camel are at the moment, but I'm telling you, it is expensive. We're talking about a couple of thousand, I guess, pounds. So it's something to think about. So sisters do ask the advice, may I use norethisterone tablets, yani contraceptive tablets, in order to delay my menstrual cycle for the period that I'm away so I can perform my Hajj and return? I don't give an answer in the affirmative, and I don't give an answer in the non-affirmative, because at the end of the day, this is a choice that the woman makes. Okay, but I'll answer it in this way: that can a woman use contraceptive tablets? Can a woman use contraceptive? Can a man use contraceptive? Yes, the answer is yes, if there is a Shari reason for it. What I mean by if there is a Shari reason for it, is that yani she's medically incapable of giving birth due to a very heavy childbirth, 6 months ago. She's suffering medically. She's got very young children, which she's struggling to make time for. She has a child that requires a lot of time because he's physically or mentally impaired in some way, or many other reasons why she needs to just take a little bit of a gap, a little bit of space before she gets pregnant again. So there is a permissibility for non-permanent contraceptive methods that either the male uses or the female uses. Obviously, she's not using it with the niyyah of contraception in this case. She's using it with the niyyah of delaying her menstrual cycle. However, what she needs to be considerate about, and as you know, I'm no expert on females' use of contraceptive tablets and the consequences as a result of them. And I've not done any research on 100 women, 1,000 women, 5,000 women have used it. But from the anecdotal stories that people have shared with me, it can have a negative impact. It can actually bring on a lot of bleeding. In fact, sometimes what it can do, it can mess up the woman's menstrual cycle. So she now doesn't really know what's happening and all the rest of it. That's a decision for the woman. I'm not going to make that decision for her. Finally, tawaf al-wada, which is wajib. This is the kind of goodbye tawaf, and this, the woman should delay it for as long as possible, and then she should perform it before leaving Mecca. And that end of the slideshow. Alhamdulillah. At the current price of wheat, £5 per person will cover and discharge the obligation fitrana for Ramadan. Jazakumullah khairan. Barakallah feek. Thank you very much for that, Usman. So that's that question dealt with. Camel price in Saudi starts from 1700 plus. So you can see the cost associated with that. I have 1 minute. I've obviously already answered some questions, but I will see what other questions have appeared as a consequence. And the person's question I do need to answer is Usman's questions, obviously, which is very important. I'm performing Qiran Hajj and I have 2 sets of ihram garments. Before entering into ihram of the miqat, I applied perfume on my body as per the sunnah. But both of my ihram garments have already been washed with scented detergent or had fragrance on them. After making the intention and entering into the state of ihram with the first set, am I allowed to change into the second set of ihram garments later, knowing that the second set also has fragrance on it? Would this be considered violating the prohibition of ihram? Or is it permissible since the fragrance was applied before entering into the state of ihram? I've heard conflicting responses to this. So what I would do is suggest exercise caution or precaution and avoid that. However, because these were fragrance before the person was in a state of ihram, then correctly said there is some scope of permissibility. However, I would avoid it. I intended to perform Hajj Tamattu and entered into ihram for Umrah while on the train heading to Mecca. However, when I arrived in Mecca, I realized I only had 1 day left before Hajj starts and I've not yet started my Umrah. In this situation, am I allowed to change my intention from Tamattu to Qiran and perform Hajj and Umrah together in one ihram? That doesn't make sense to me, because if you've only got 1 day left to perform Umrah in, what difference would it make if you perform that in one ihram or in 2 ihrams? Because going into ihram takes a split second. It's just a niyyah, because he doesn't even have to change the clothes. But if he's not done any acts of Hajj, any acts of Umrah, then yes, he may change the niyyah. But like I said, it makes no sense, because he's having to still do, whether in Quran or in Tamattu, he still has to do the same ritual acts. In this situation, am I allowed to have done that one? What if I already completed the Umrah rituals but have not yet shaved or trimmed my hair? Can I still change my intention? No, not at this point. When performing Umrah, do I need to make the specific intention for Tawaf and Sayyid right before starting them at the Kaaba and Safa Marwa, or is it permissible to make the intention earlier? For example, while still in my hotel room before walking to Masjid al-Haram. It's better to associate your intention as close to the act as possible. This is in all cases, in any ritual act. Question: if someone leaves Muzdalifah around 7 a.m. and begins walking back towards Mina or via a coach, they may pass by the Jamaat area on the way. In this case, since they're already near the Jamaat, is allowed to do the Rami at that time? It's before Zawal, even though they haven't reached their camp in Mina yet. They should wait till after Zawal. Okay, that is the correct way to do it. If someone is performing Hajj Qiran, can they combine the Tawaf of Umrah? I've already answered this. Question: is the Qurbani that is done during the... I've answered this as well, that they're different. What intention should a person make for each? One intention is like a shukr for the fact that you performed Qiran or Tamattu, and the udhiyah is that you are making a slaughter, which is wajib. It is not fard that you mention what this Qurbani is for. The niyyah will suffice. Do I do meat fibers between the teeth prevent the validity of ghusl? I guess it would depend if it blocks access for the water. Before starting salah, is it enough to be reasonably sure of being within the valid Qibla direction, within 45 degrees of the exact direction, or must one try to be certain if they can? Yes, a person should try to be certain if they can. What is the ruling of reading hadith books for laymen? Hadith books to encourage one to do virtuous acts and to stop a person from doing sins are good for anybody. But if a person is going to try to interpret them, understand rulings from them, then he should be careful. But even those type of hadith books that I mentioned to you, it is better that they read a book written by a scholar in which he collates these hadith, rather than trying to read, hadith books themselves. Salam, I have a question regarding Haid. I've tried emailing the address provided previously, but it doesn't work. You need to go to the pinned message, sister. And on the pinned message, there is an email there, and that email is in use. Okay, that covers that. There was one other question which came from my esteemed colleague, Usman, in which he asked the question about doing wudu in a particular way. So there is a manner in which people take like a spray thing and they do wudu by spraying their arms, spraying their face, spraying their feet, spraying water onto their hands and doing masa. And they ask the question, that is wudu, because getting to water can be difficult, either when you're in the haram or when you're in the Muzdalifa, Mina, whatever, all these places. So could this not be a way around it? The issue really comes down to the definition between masah and ghusl. Okay, masah and ghusl. Masah is wiping with something which is wet, and ghusl means something which is washed. So, for example, we wipe our heads with masah and we wash our faces. So what are we doing differently? The wiping means you take a wet hand across and you do not expect water to flow or drip. Washing means you expect water to flow and to drip. So if you can soak your arm with this spray thing to such an extent that water flows, like the way when condensation hits a window. So when condensation hits a window, you start to see when sufficient amount of water has hit the window, it starts to build into droplets and then it starts to come down your window pane. In the same way, when you start to put enough water, you'll start to see water running down your arm. That can be considered as washing, and a few drops need to fall off your hand, and that will be then considered as ghusl. If that happens, then yes, it is valid. Okay, bear in mind that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in used to use probably less than a 500 ml water bottle for wudu. Okay, so this is not a lot of water. They would use about this quantity of water to make wudu with, and about 3.5 liters or so of water to make ghusl with. And they were big men, 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot, large beards. But they did a lot of rubbing, okay, to make sure that water reached everywhere. So keep that in mind, inshallah. And I think that answers all the questions. Alhamdulillah. So jazakumullah khair to everybody. Inshallah, we will be back next week on week 3. Let me highlight this out. Week 2 is done. Week 3, we will be talking about the days of Hajj, the 5 days of Hajj, in which we will be going into more detail, inshallah. Today was an overview, or as Usman puts it, a very, very, very rough routine. Okay, more deep dive, and we're going to probably deliver that over 2 days, yani 2 weeks, on the 21st of May and on the 28th of May. By then, alhamdulillah, all the Hajj will be complete. And then on the last week, which is week 5, on the 4th of June, we will, inshallah, be talking about Dhul Hijjah, the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. As I've said previously, please do share links to these videos to anybody that you know that is going to perform Hajj. It will be very useful for them. And inshallah, bi'idhnillah, they will benefit from them. Jazakallah khair again, same time, same place next week, 6 p.m. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.